Jim Collison, Infotec 2015, and we've been doing keynote and session leader interviews all week here at the conference. I'm here with Mark.Fuller. Mark, thanks for coming out and being a part of what we're doing.
Thanks for having me.
Let's do the focus on you, is what we call it at Gallup. Just a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what you do, who you work for, those kinds of things.
Sure. So Mark.Fuller, I work currently at the CSG International. I've been there for 7 years, been also in Omaha for 7 years. Prior to that, I've lived all over the country and all over the world doing IT consulting, primarily for telecommunications companies. So.
Oh, very cool.
Yep.
Yeah, and Omaha, you've been in Omaha just about 7 years.
7 years, yep.
And no beaches here, like where you came from.
Correct.
But I think Omaha's the best kept secret in the Midwest.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
We like it.
Yeah. A lot of good stuff here. Great place
Correct.
to raise kids.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about your session. What did you hope to do in your session?
So the session that I talked about today, or actually yesterday, was enterprise agility and using the Scaled Agile Framework and lean principles. So really the difference is when you first start out in Agile and you have, let's say you've got a startup or you've got 1 or 2 Agile teams, you don't need these principles. You can control the way the teams work and how things work together. When you get to scale and you start talking about 25, 50, 100 Agile teams that are all working on a product suite that all has to work together, there's some different things that you have to do in order to make that work effectively and use Agile at scale. So that's really what the presentation
Can
was
you
about.
talk? So this is always interesting to me because we watch a lot of companies start Agile when they're small, they grow, they get bigger. They feel like they have to start putting some controls in place,
right,
which kind of breaks some of the Agile, right? Things get in process. Can you talk a little bit, first of all, say, how do you keep that from happening as you get larger, staying smaller? And then 2, what are some of those things that you can do as an organization to keep command and control without letting it get out of hand?
Yeah, so I think a few things that we focus on. One is at the team level. We really try to focus on the teams and make sure that they have the autonomy and they're still doing the Agile practices. So our teams are still running Scrum or Kanban systems. They're running XP practices. The teams are the ones that actually produce the value. So you can't get in their way and have a lot of process or governance that really impedes them. So you have to be careful about that. What you can do is you can take some of the Scaled Agile Framework principles, some of the lean principles. So lean comes from lean manufacturing, obviously, Toyota, Taiichi Ohno and the Toyota way. And there's a lot of people that have written about how that can be applied into software development. So if you go start studying those things, you start looking at things like cadence and synchronization, for example. So if you have teams that are all working on the same product or product suite, and they're doing their Agile thing, and they're doing 2-week iterations or 2-week sprints, you don't want those sprints to start and stop at different times. You want them to start at the same time so that you can get synchronization across those teams. So that doesn't impede the team or impede their ability to work as a team, but it aligns the entire program to the same cadence, right? If you're doing releases, so in our case, we do releases quarterly for our customers, but we don't want teams to be running different number of sprints for a release. So everybody currently runs 7 sprints for a release. So that aligns us as an entire program so that we're all coming together at the same time. We're all executing on the same cadence. So you can do those things and put those pieces into place without impeding the team or changing their ability to be Agile at all. But it helps at the broader level when you get to that scale.
Okay. And I hear a lot of talk right now about constant release cycles.
Correct.
Where people are, how does that fit in? You say release quarterly. How does that jive together when we think about at Gallup we do monthly releases? That's kind of where we're at. How does that all fit together in your paradigm?
Right. So the goal actually is to deliver value to your customer in a sustainable pace. And so whatever that means for you or your company is what you need to focus on, right? So in our case, we have about 50,000 customer service representatives that are using our system every day. We can't put change in. If we put a change in that causes those folks to all need to be retrained, right? You're retraining 50,000 people, so you can't do that, right?
Let's back up just a smidge, just so people who don't know, you guys create the software for the cable, right? For cable.
Right. In North America, that's primarily what we do. So our North American business is BSS OSS systems for satellite and cable TV companies. So our key clients are people like Comcast, Time Warner, Charter, Dish, etc.
And it's how their customer service reps interact with their customers.
So it's actually our system that they're using. Right. So if you're a Comcast customer and you call in to change your package or to get something new or cancel, they're looking at our screens. So it's our customer service. So we don't own the customer service reps in that sense. They don't work for us. They work for Comcast or whoever, but they're looking at our software.
It's your platform.
And then we take it all the way from there And we actually have a print center in Omaha, which is pretty fascinating. If you haven't been, let me know. Give me a call and I'll take you out there.
That'd be very
we print and mail about 70 million pieces of mail a month.
Wow.
Out of that facility.
70 million.
Wow. Million.
Yeah.
So it's really fascinating. So we kind of have lean practices that we're applying in the software development shop, and then we have the lean practices that we immediately apply also in our print shop.
Yeah.
You can, on the print shop, it's nice because you can actually see them and see the flow of things. When lean talks about flow of product,
that is almost manufacturing, right? Mail has become a form of manufacturing.
So we actually kind of have both sides of it. So it's pretty fascinating.
Is that number going down as far as, I mean, are we getting more electronic?
Yeah, it is. So it's one of the challenges that we have as a business, right? So a lot of people like me have turned off most of it. Like I don't like, even though we get paid for it. Is this being recorded? No. Never mind.
Yes, it is.
Never mind. So I have most of it turned off because I don't want to get that. I don't want to receive that mail. But what we're finding is our numbers are actually staying pretty steady or going up, because what's happening is that other print centers are shutting down. And so for the remaining print that needs to happen, those customers have to migrate somewhere. Yes. So we're actually staying steady, or in some cases actually increasing year over year. Even though our primary customers, we see, that it's slowly dropping the number of people that we're printing bills for, for let's say Comcast, but we're bringing in new customers all the time.
Yeah. So the overall is staying, but that's because there's efficiencies being done in the locations.
So for example, we don't do the billing for Cox, who's here and big in Omaha, but we do their printing. So we print all their bills.
Oh wow. Okay.
We print for like True Green Chemlon.
Okay.
So we can print those bills as well. We can print anybody's bill.
Yeah.
But we also print the bills for the people we service.
But print the bills, then they're going to do that. They're going to actually do the physical mailing.
No, we actually mail.
You do the mailing.
The post office backs up big trucks, and we load them up with pallets, and they're there every day.
Yeah, that's interesting, because we just did a big mailing at Gallup. We just did for the United States Postal Service a survey for them. 635,000 pieces of mail.
Right.
Not bills, but actually boxes we were sending. So a pretty big effort. You guys probably do that every single day.
We do that every day.
No, that's fascinating.
Yeah. So if you want to tour sometime, give me a call. I'll set it up for
you. Yeah. So to come full circle, though, to come back to it, so you've got customer service reps who are working on these screens, and they're actually trying to help customers through problems. And we know many of them do it best when they know where to go. You've always called that customer service rep from time to time. They're like, hold on, my computer's not working.
Exactly.
Type deal. So for you, the rollout cycle needs to be more stable. It would be chaos if you were making changes every day.
And we've actually made changes in the last 2 years, which is kind of interesting. In 2013, we were actually producing about every 6 months. We were producing a release and sending it out to our customers. And what we found is that our quality was not as good as we wanted it to be. And by cutting the batch size, in essence, the batch size being the release. So in 2013, we were releasing about 150 features per release. We now release quarterly, so in half the time, but we only do about 70 features. So what that means is we're delivering fewer features, but we're delivering them faster to our customers. And we've seen a huge increase in our quality. That. So
how far from the time the customers ask for it to the time you guys deliver it, what's the typical wait time for that?
So time to market, that's a big thing that we look at. Before we started implementing safe and lean practices, our time to market was about 450 days.
Wow, that's a long time.
Which seems like a long time, but when you've got a 6 month development cycle, you've got all the requirements gathering before that and all the time after that for them. Today, with the principles that we put in place, we're down to about 184 on average.
That's great.
Which still seems like a lot in an internet-based economy, and I want to deliver every day kind of thing. It still seems high, and we recognize that. We're doing things that continue to bring that down, but we've come a long ways in 2 years. We've cut it in half or more. So so that's a big improvement for us.
In your release cycle on the backside with bugs, fixes that need to be done, will you do another release if you need to, if it's significant enough?
So we push code into production every day. We're fixing problems, we're putting things in every day, and we can even release features off release. But what we find is that for the big kind of, when we want to put together 70 features so they can create training for those CSRs and give them updates, they only want to do that quarterly. So they don't want us to push those out every day. So based on customer need, that's what we're doing. We could actually go faster.
And those fixes wouldn't necessarily relate to functionality. So the end user's not seeing it. It's just working correctly.
It's something that isn't working correctly, and now it magically works correctly for them.
Really good. What did you want? So as the folks you were talking to, your session was yesterday. Is that right? What were you hoping folks would walk away with? What's the big idea that you were hoping they'd walk away with?
A few things. One is that safe is not for everyone. So you have to be of a certain size before these scaling principles even make sense.
Okay.
Again, if you only have 1 or 2 teams, you don't need it.
Okay.
But on the other hand, if you're a big company, and this is where I actually have enjoyed it, coming into a legacy company, legacy meaning, CSG's been around since 1994 as a company. We've got software that's been running for 30 years. We did most of that time as waterfall. So coming into a legacy company with lots of teams and transforming the culture and taking it to Agile at that scale, that's what, it was such a short session, actually, that there's no way I could give them all the learning and all the material that I would have liked.
Yeah.
There's actually 2-day classes that I teach on this stuff, and 2 days isn't even enough. So 45 minutes was certainly not enough.
Yeah.
But I tried to give them at least a flavor so that they could understand what I was talking about and then say, hey, that's something I need to go look at farther and then go research and go find the information for themselves and start digging in.
Yeah. So maybe one thing that you didn't get to cover in the session that you wish you could have, that would have been valuable now that it's done, like, oh, I wish I would have covered that.
Well, there's a lot more. There's a lot more to talk about at the team level for sure. And I didn't spend enough time, I don't think, talking about, still, as your question alluded to at the beginning, talking about Agile practices and how we don't lose those at the team level when we scale up. So I gave some high-level overview, but I would have liked to have spent a lot more time there.
Yeah, and what are some resources if someone was watching this video and they were like, "Oh, I want to dig a little bit more"? What do you recommend from how do they start the dig in process?
So there's some very interesting books that I would start with. There's some seminars, there's webinars, there's all kinds of things. The one thing that I pointed people to is the Scaled Agile Framework itself. It's a publicly available framework. You go to scaledagileFramework.com, you can find it there. Some of the books that I gave them a list of books that I've read and that I'm reading. So I think a really good one is called The Phoenix Project. It's by Gene Kim and 2 other folks. It really talks about why you need these it's written like a novel, but I swear it's like Dilbert, like they were sitting in the cube next to me writing it like,
were they spying on me?
They knew what like
Exactly.
this completely explained our problem and how to start going about it. Craig Larman wrote a really decent book on scaling agile development. That's another one that I would say. Don Reinertson's book on product development flow. So how you actually make, focus on getting rid of bottlenecks and improving and watching your work in process and limiting that and reducing your batch size, all those things, and understanding how they apply to software development is a big one. One that I enjoyed that I listed for the class was the Lean Machine. So Harley Davidson, how they leaned out their manufacturing process, I thought was fascinating. And I could easily take those learnings into what we're doing. The one I'm currently reading is The Lean Enterprise by Jez Humble. So that's another good. So there's lots of material out there for people that are interested.
Harley's a big customer of ours. Harley Davidson, a good customer.
So you should read that. Lean Machine.
The
other thing that I would recommend, the other conference that I attend that I think is valuable is the Agile 2015 conference that I'll be going to. That's in Washington, D.C. this year. It changes locations every year. But it's a week-long conference, and it really brings forward the best thinkers and the latest thinking in Agile and Lean and Enterprise and DevOps, and it really kind of puts everybody in.
Where would someone find that? How would they find the registration?
If you just Google Agile 2015, you'll find it.
Perfect. In Washington. When is it?
Washington, D.C., the first week in August.
First week in August. Oh, good time to be in. Oh, it's going to be hot.
Oh, it's going to be hot.
It's going to be hot.
It's okay. You'll be inside all the time listening to fascinating speakers.
That's the best time. I think sometimes, we do these conferences in the spring in Vegas, and you're like, oh, that's the best time to be in. You want to be outside. Not in a conference. So I always say, we should do our conferences in the middle of the winter.
That would be a good idea.
Because, it's like
the last one was in Orlando in August.
So, I've been to Orlando in August.
It's miserable.
That's really hot. One more question for you, not necessarily related to your topic, but I've been asking everybody the same question, just around technology over the next 3 to 5 years. Any new technologies that you're keeping an eye on that you're really excited about? They may not be here yet, but you're thinking, man, I can't wait for this to get here.
So personally or professionally?
It could be either.
Could be either.
It could be either, yeah.
So professionally, I think the next big thing for us is moving to the cloud. We're not there yet, and a lot of companies are moving there. There's still some security concerns about moving to the cloud. We need to work past those.
And those are legit, right? I mean,
they're legit, and I understand that. But we have to move through that, and we have to work our way through that. Because there's no way that we can have an internal data center as cheap as what a Google or a Microsoft or you name it, Amazon, you name it. You name the, there's a lot of them out there, right? Rackspace, there's a bunch of them here today. There's no way that we can run that as cheaply as they can.
Or as efficiently.
As they can. So we need to take advantage of that.
Right on.
So personally, I'm still waiting for flying cars. I can't wait for that to come.
Well, we're just months away from the hoverboard.
I'm excited. I'll start on that.
I think that's coming. they showed it Back to the Future.
That's
so
right.
it's, I think October 15th
That's
is
right.
the day. You engineers,
That's
you
right.
gotta
That's
get
right.
that done.
We'll get
Well,
that.
very cool. Mark, thanks for coming around, taking
Thank
the
you very
time. I'll
much.
release you to lunch, and thanks
Perfect.
for coming out.
Appreciate
Appreciate it.